Being a child of the 80s, I must admit to being a massive fan of the 1987 version of The Running Man growing up. So much of a fan, in fact, that when I had to choose a book to read in class in elementary school, I picked the Stephen King, or rather Richard Bachman novel the film was based on, only to be shocked at how little the two had in common beyond the basic premise. Edgar Wright's adaptation is far more faithful to the novel than the 80s movie, albeit given a contemporary, action movie polish that keeps it from being the incendiary downer the book was. As a piece of entertainment, its craft is often dazzling, with Wright, as always, proving himself a gifted director. So in this one, in an act of desperation, Ben Richards, who's played by Glen Powell, signs up to be a contestant on The Running Man, a televised game show where he would be hunted across the United States by an army of goons and professional killers, while the viewing public receives huge cash bonuses for selling him out to the network that airs the show. So, while I enjoyed The Running Man, I will say this, it is not without its faults. The movie does indeed fall flat any time it tries to be satirical, which is more often than not. One of the reasons the 80s film worked so well is that it perfectly skewed pop culture and cheesy game shows of the time. This new version aims to do the same, but never quite convinces us that the world it depicts would actually embrace a premise like The Running Man. Its vision of the future feels like the dystopia we imagined in the 80s rather than the one we might imagine now, one that could have been more effectively satirized with AI, social media, and, well, tech oligarchs. As such, the satire just doesn't have the bite that the original had. Josh Brolin as Killian, the film's big bad, is smooth and polished, but he never gets enough screen time for us to really hate him. The film also takes a highly episodic approach, with Powell's Richards moving from one ally to the next. Many of the bigger names, such as William H. Macy, have surprisingly small roles. It's certainly Glen Powell's show all the way through, and his debut as an action star is mostly strong. He has the wiry physique to make for a convincing hero who's not in the Arnold mold, relying more on disguises and ingenuity to evade capture. Yet his tough guy act often feels forced, with his constant scowling and occasional one-liners trying a little too hard to convince us that he's an action hero, even though it's precisely the fact that he isn't that makes him interesting casting. For all of its faults, which are more noticeable than I expected, The Running Man still delivers some incredible sequences. There's a car chase where Powell is trapped in a trunk and bounced away in inventive ways, and the finale aboard a network jet is both violent and thrilling. I also really loved Lee Pace as the main hunter. He's the only one of the bunch with real presence, and he has enough gravitas to potentially anchor an action film himself. He's cast very effectively against type as a tough guy. Michael Cera also steals scenes as revolutionary zine publisher who seems to understand the movie's intended satirical tone better than anyone else. Where many may find The Running Man comes up especially short is in the final act, which feels truncated as it rushes towards the ending. Amelia Jones's character, who's introduced very late in the game, undergoes a ridiculously abrupt change, making it seem like a good chunk of her role was cut. The finale itself feels anticlimactic, sped through as if it was added in post-production. While this review may make it sound like I didn't enjoy Edgar Wright's Running Man, that's not the case. Wright is a great director, although sometimes his movies don't quite land for me. Maybe it's because they're so stuffed and frantic that they can be overwhelming. It actually took me several repeat viewings to come around to Scott Pilgrim, and perhaps the same will be true here. Even so, the flaws are outweighed by the sheer craft and spectacle on display. It may not have landed exactly how I hoped, but The Running Man is still a must-see, and one many will love. And for the record, I saw this with 6 other people. 3 loved it, 3 felt the same I did, and no one hated it. So take from that what you will. I give this a 6 out of 10, which is a disappointment for me, but hey, what can you do?
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.